What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to take another look at the Motorola Moto G Stylus 4G 2022 and go over whether or not it's still a good phone to buy in late 2023. Now, as always, if you want to learn more about this phone, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. Now with this phone, we're getting a 6.8-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 396, and a 20.5:9 aspect ratio. So we're definitely getting a great display here. At 6.8 inches, it is really large. In fact, compared to the 2023 version, this one is actually quite a bit larger. And with a 1080p resolution, keep in mind the 2023 actually has a 720p resolution, so it's even better there too. In general with this phone, no matter what you're doing on it, whether you're doing more casual, basic things like browsing the web, reading, using social media, stuff like that, or if you're doing a lot of content consumption, you will get a great experience with this phone, so I really have no complaints. No, actually, I do have one tiny thing that could be better, and that's just that despite not being the worst thing, since we are only getting an IPS LCD here, the viewing angles, as you can possibly tell in this video, are really not the best. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, compared to something like an AMOLED or a Super AMOLED or an OLED, a phone like this will be a bit more difficult to see. But really, aside from that, everything about this display is great. So if you are looking for something to watch videos on, do some reading, play games, browse the web, use social media, really anything, you're definitely not going to go wrong with this display. Now for storage, with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so plenty of storage here. For the average user, you're probably not going to need more than this, and even if you do have maybe lots of photos and videos, for example, with this phone, you can always offload that stuff onto a microSD card, and that definitely will make a difference. So if you're looking for a relatively affordable phone that has plenty of storage, then this phone will be a great choice for you. For security features, the Moto G Stylus 2022 does have Face Unlock and a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key. So definitely a great spot for a fingerprint scanner, can't go wrong with that, but real quick, let's give it a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, it works real well, no issues at all. And again, this phone does have Face Unlock too, so definitely nice to have some flexibility. Now taking a look at the camera setup here, with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022, up front, we got a real nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup, with a 50 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera that also doubles as a macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So we got plenty of features here. I do appreciate we're getting both an ultra wide camera and a macro camera here, and you want a wider variety of features, then I do think you will be happy with the camera setup here. To give you an idea of what it can do, here's some pictures taken with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022, and overall for what it is, I do think the photo quality is pretty good here. Sure, if you compare it to a much more expensive phone, it's not going to be nearly as good, but if you're looking at a mid-range phone, then chances are you kind of know what to expect from a phone like this. So in that sense, I do think you will be pleasantly surprised, because compared to other $300 phones, or that was the original full price, I imagine this phone is probably going for like $100 to $150 or something now. So compared to phones in that price range, the photo quality here is even better. So in general, if you are looking for something really affordable, but you still want good photo quality too, then this phone will be a great choice. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022, this of course is not a 5G phone. The Moto G Stylus 5G 2022 is a completely different phone, which I also have covered on the channel, but essentially of course we're only getting 4G connectivity here. And despite this, I do think the overall performance is pretty decent. With this device, we are getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Helio G88 processor. I ran a benchmark test on it using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of where it stands performance-wise compared to your current device, because depending on what you currently have, it may or may not actually be an upgrade. But I will say, in my experience, the performance is pretty decent. I mean, it's definitely not the fastest phone in the world, but for what it's really made for more casual, light use, stuff like browsing the web, using social media, watching videos, and maybe some light mobile gaming, it will get the job done. So if you're not doing a ton on it, but you still want at least halfway decent performance, then it will at least be okay. Now for the battery, with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022, we are getting a really large 5000 mAh battery that also supports 10-watt fast charging. Now, I feel like the fast charging is not really fast charging. I mean, how good could 10 watts on a 5000 mAh battery really be? But in my experience, the charging speed is at least acceptable. But considering we're getting such a large battery, chances are you won't really have to charge the phone until the nighttime anyway. So if you are looking for a phone that has really good battery life, the Moto G Stylus 4G will be a pretty good choice for you. Now for the software, with this phone we are getting Android 12, which on one hand, considering we're on Android 14, that may be kind of disappointing, but keep in mind it did start out with Android 11, so at least some improvement there. And I know lots of people don't really care about the software anyway, so if that's you, if you're not really that concerned about it, then keep in mind things still do run really well on here. I haven't had any performance issues, it's just not quite as nice and new. So overall, it is what it is. If you want the latest version of Android, then of course you will want to get something else, but otherwise I would say it's at least okay. Now one thing that's too bad about this phone is that unfortunately we're not getting NFC here. So if you like to use tap and pay, you will want to get something else, and I feel like this is really too bad because even though it's just a 4G phone that's more or less a budget option, I feel like at this point in late 2023, pretty much every phone should have NFC. I mean, tap and pay is such a common, widely used feature that it's more or less an expectation now. So if that does bother you, if you do like to use tap and pay, you will want to get something else. And keep in mind, the Moto G Stylus 5G, both 2022 and 2023, does actually have NFC. So if you want a phone like this, but you do want tap and pay too, then that could be something to consider. But again, for the purpose of this video, the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022 does not have NFC. But on the bright side, it does at least have a stylus, which for what it is, the stylus here is actually pretty good. For more basic stuff like writing handwritten notes and things like that, it will get the job done. Obviously, it's not going to be sensitive enough to do real art or anything, but for what it's meant for, I do think it's more than good enough. But in conclusion, is the Motorola Moto G Stylus 4G 2022 still worth buying in late 2023? Overall, I would definitely say yes. Partially because I feel like in pretty much every way, except for the software, I do think this phone is better than the successor. So yeah, just because of even that alone, if you don't really care about the software, and keep in mind the 2023 version probably will eventually get Android 14, but most likely not anytime soon, so having Android 13 over Android 12 in a time when we're on Android 14 isn't really that much of an advantage in my opinion. So considering that, and considering we're getting such a good display here, a really nice camera, sort of decent performance, a really large battery, and a stylus, if you are looking for a more entry-level phone for basic activities, especially consuming lots of content, I do think even at this point in late 2023, the Moto G Stylus 4G 2022 is definitely worth considering. Now once again, if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.